At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being. What do I have to complain of if I'm going to do what I was born for? The things I was brought into the world to do? Or is this what I was created for? To huddle under the blankets and stay warm? Marcus Aurelius, an iconic figure in Stoicism, embodies the essence of Stoic philosophy, which holds the virtues of perseverance, patience, honesty, and honor as the cornerstones of a life well lived. What does Aurelius mean here when he says, is this what I was created for? To huddle under the blankets and stay warm? He is underscoring the inherent challenges that define the human condition. Far from being shielded by the comforts of complacency, humans are thrust into a world marked by adversity and unpredictability. And often, our laziness and our need for comfort lead us astray from facing these adversities head on. Despite the inevitable inconveniences, tragedies, and injustices that plague our lives, these experiences are necessary to our existence. Aurelius was resilient and never ever considered himself a victim, and we should do the same. But unfortunately, it seems now more than ever, individuals yearn to be victims. There is a victim mentality epidemic in modern society, and we have created a world that venerates and rewards this behavior, which in turn is weakening and destroying the fabric of a just and well-lived human existence. What makes a victim a victim? The victim mentality is a learned behavior, meaning that is a conscious choice. In other words, it is a coping mechanism. It is important to remember that not all victim mentalities are based on selfish reasons. Many people do experience real trauma. However, no matter how it is said or done, the victim mentality is a coping mechanism. It is commonly agreed upon in psychology that an individual will see and portray themselves as victims because of four common reasons: trauma, avoidance, manipulation, or a lack of accountability. Today, we are going to focus on the latter two: manipulation and a lack of accountability. Labeling oneself as a victim as a form of manipulation or to avoid accountability are the most malicious and damaging manifestations of the victim mentality. Manipulation occurs when individuals deliberately adopt the role of victim to garner sympathy, manipulate others' emotions, or gain some form of advantage, be it social, financial, or otherwise. This manipulation can be subtle or overt, but its effects are profound, eroding trust and fostering a culture of cynicism and resentment. Similarly, the refusal to take accountability for one's actions or circumstances is a pervasive issue in modern society. Instead of facing the consequences of their choices or addressing their shortcomings, individuals may choose to adopt the victim label as a shield against responsibility. By casting themselves as helpless victims of external forces, they absolve themselves of any culpability. These tendencies are particularly troubling because they contribute to a culture of entitlement and overshadow the voices of those who truly need support. Certainly, we can see why the victim mentality can be dangerous to individuals and those that they affect with their actions, but it also leads society as a whole down a very dark path. The power of the victim mentality is extremely strong and persuasive, which is why political figures have used it as a tool to manipulate populations for their own gain throughout history. By portraying themselves or their followers as victims of some perceived injustice or oppression, these leaders exploit emotions and rally support behind their agendas. The use of the victim mentality was done masterfully by Joseph Stalin. During the Marxist Revolution in Russia, Stalin targeted the resentful minority, those that were not as prosperous as some farmers categorized in the kulak class. The communists employed sophisticated propaganda techniques to portray the kulaks as oppressors and exploiters, thereby justifying their persecution and confiscation of property. By manipulating the narrative to depict the kulaks as enemies of the proletariat, Stalin was able to consolidate power and silence dissent. This strategy of scapegoating and demonizing certain groups not only enabled the communist regime to maintain control, but also served to rally support among the masses by appealing to their grievances and resentments. The legacy of this manipulation of victimhood continues to reverberate through history, underscoring the dangers of exploiting societal divisions for political gain. The manipulation of victimhood, as seen in the Marxist Revolution in Russia, echoes eerily in contemporary discourse surrounding the term microaggressions. While the historical context may differ, the underlying dynamics remain strikingly similar. Just as Stalin exploited societal divisions to consolidate power, the proliferation of the concept of microaggressions has led to a heightened sensitivity to perceived slights and offenses. This hypersensitivity, fueled by academia and media, has led to a culture where even the smallest gestures are scrutinized for their potential to victimize or oppress. As we can see in this Google search trends graph, the term microaggression wasn't always commonplace in our vocabulary. This hypervigilance and surveillance of victim versus oppressor was not being actively practiced, and for an entire decade between the years of 2004 and 2014, the term microaggression was barely searched for. At that point in time, it was an underground term coined by the late psychiatrist and Harvard professor Chester M. Pierce. Through 2014 and 2020, you can see interest in searching for microaggressions increase. During those years, the term microaggression began to slowly be injected into our stream of thinking, that even the smallest of gestures can be attacks on someone, victimizing them in some way. It wasn't until summer of 2020 when there was a huge spike, coinciding with the George Floyd protests. In the 21st century, the racial unrest we see today wasn't always there, but it has certainly gotten worse in recent years. Why? Because powerful figures benefit from sowing divide. The parallels between the demonization of the kulaks and the identification of microaggressions highlight the dangers of exploiting grievances and fostering division for political or ideological gain. It leaves us to question who truly benefits from perpetuating a victim versus oppressor paradigm. Do we benefit as individuals from this system of thinking? No, absolutely not. As Marcus Aurelius said, as a human being, what do I have to complain of if I'm going to do what I was born for? And what we were born for is to live and to suffer, not to cower under the veil of victimhood. Suffering is a necessary part of life, and we all suffer in some way, but we are not victims. You cannot hold moral authority over someone else because you believe you are a victim, and the most malignant personalities use victimhood as a manipulation technique. It can be your friend, family, or coworker, or it can be your government. Anyone can use the victim mentality as a tool for gain. It is imperative that we cultivate a society that encourages accountability, resilience, and empathy rather than rewarding victimhood. Only by challenging the victim mentality in all its forms can we hope to build a stronger and more resilient society. If you like this video, please consider supporting our channel by subscribing, sharing, and liking this video. Thank you, and don't forget to always push the boundary.